Top of the morning to everybody. All right, so now we're going to go through menus 3 and 4. These aren't that long, but I just want to show you what they do on this particular camera. Again, this is a Panasonic AG-HPX370P. It's a P2 camera. It's a larger model, not a small one, with a detachable lens as well. It's good to note. All right, third menu, software mode. Okay, if we go in here, we have, mostly this is the setups of buttons and things like that, they control all these switches and things. So to begin with, we have low gain, 0 decibels. So if I go here and I look right here, these are my low gain. L is low, M is medium, H is high, so that's on my gain, right? So as I adjust that, you'll see the gain go up. Okay. Now you can go in here and you can change this so you have different settings. You can take it down 3 decibels or you can bring it up to 12. I usually leave it on 0, and for the most part I leave my gain on 0. Mid gain brings you up 6 decibels. Well, if you set it, you can have it bring up 9, 3, 0. You can make it go down if you want. It's up to you. I have mine set on 6 and my high gain set on 12. So these are just the settings that set that little switch, the 3 positions on this switch. Okay. Auto white balance. If you set this to off, which is where I leave it, that allows you to have preset white balance that you can set in here as well. An A, that you use the lovely little auto white balance switch that's way up here. So you can use A for that and you can use B for that. Now what this enables you to do, being that this is off, what this enables you to do is have a different white balance setting for A and B. So let's say you're shooting in one direction for A, and then you're shooting in another direction, it's in the shade for B. You can rapidly switch them between the two, and it will change your white balance. And notice I have 2 different settings on here already. One I've set right now, the other one I set probably on last Tuesday. I have no idea. But this allows you to set between the 2. Preset is a preset that we'll discuss in a little bit. But if I were to do this and change this auto white balance setting to B channel, it essentially does what's called hunting, and it's kind of annoying, but basically as you walk around and move around, it will change the white balance and try to find the white for you while it's on B. And when you're not moving, sometimes it will sit there. If it can't find white, it will sit there and change from cold to warm to cold to warm, and that's called hunting. So you have to be aware of that. You can use that, and it's a nice easy feature, but if you find your white balance is drifting in and out, it's probably best to switch this to off and use something else. I, for one, I enjoy using a white balance disc that I've discussed in another thing. This is what the white balance disc looks like. And basically this goes over the lens as a lens cap. You can see how it's got the little buttons on it. And it goes over the lens as a lens cap, and you set the white balance, and it takes all the light in the whole surrounding area into effect and turns it into a white here. It works really well. Okay, auto white balance type. So you have 1 and 2. 1 is standard white balance operation. And number 2, it says in the menu, it says further restricts the color of the light source range that is tracked than setting 1. So it basically it restricts the hunting effect if you use 2. But since I have it off, it's irrelevant. Okay, white balance preset. Okay, this is this little preset here. You have 2 choices, indoor or outdoor, indoor or outdoor. So if you have it here, 3.2K, this is regular tungsten lighting. 5.6 is going to be closer to the sun lighting or even fluorescent lighting. You might be able to get away with fluorescent lighting with 5.6. All right, user main, I've never changed this before, but this basically says sets the function assigned to the user main button. Okay. Now user main is that one there. Okay. So if you click it, you get all of these different things. Record review, it will review the last clip that you recorded. Spotlight will give you a spotlight auto iris, which means it will make the center object tone down just a little bit. Backlight will give you a backlit auto iris, which means it will make the outer objects much brighter and the center object a little bit darker, just to kind of compensate for when you're like I am right here. Let's say somebody was standing in the shade right there. I could use the backlight and it will bring up the background areas here and make them overblown so that I can have somebody look good in the middle, basically. Okay. You can have it set to auto white balance, so it'll turn it on and off. Auto white lock, which will, once you say, let's say you're going around and you're doing a shoot and it's hunting, the white balance is hunting, and you say, I like this. You can hit the auto white lock and it will lock it in place. Gain 24 decibels, if that's what you want. Why get? I'm not real sure what that does. DRS will give you your dynamic range extender. Text memo will put up some text to tell you in a clip what something is for you. Slot select, well, on a P2, you've got 2 slots right here. So if you're recording on one and you say, okay, I'm done with this card, I don't want to use it, I'm going to slot select. So you can set that button so that when you press this button over here, it selects to the other slot, and then you can take this out or you can just leave it in, do whatever you want with it. It's up to you. Shot mark. This will give a little tag in the metadata that will either tell you yay or nay as to if you like that shot or you didn't like it. You decide how you want to use that tag, but it will give you a little tag in the metadata of every shot. Mag A level. This is not one that I've ever had to deal with before. Pre-record will give you a little bit of a leader on your stuff when you pre-record. It'll give you a couple seconds extra. PC mode obviously turns the USB mode on or off. Waveform will bring up a little waveform monitor right about here. And FBC. I'm going to look these up just a little bit so I can explain some of the ones that I'm not familiar with. Okay, why get? This displays the brightness level in the center of the image. Okay, so I'm going to select this and I'm going to go out of the menu and I'm going to show you what this is talking about. Okay. Okay, see that? See what's going on there? So it's telling me the brightness level in the center of the image. So I'm going to move it here. See how it changes? Let's go to there. 8%. Let's lift this up a bit. 52%, 60, okay? So basically that's what that does, is it just, see a little square right there, it tells you the brightness level inside that square. So I'm at 20% now. Interesting, huh? All right, so let's turn that function off and let's go back in here. The other items. Mag A level. This was kind of an interesting thing. See my audio levels? Let's magnify them. Now you can see they're bigger and I can see them better and I can tell what the decibel level is for the audio that I'm speaking. So that's basically what that does. Pretty cool. Okay, now let's see what else we've got. Waveform. Let's show you what the waveform does. I know what it does, but let's show you what it does. There's a waveform. Pretty cool. It's good to see where your brightness is. It's very useful for adjusting the iris. FBC says flash band compensation function. Let's say you're at a big event or you're at a wedding. Now let's say you're at the Supercross and you're out there shooting and tons of people are using their photography cameras. Well, you're out there and every time something flashes it goes boom, boom, boom and annoys the heck out of you while you're trying to shoot. It can be very annoying. Trust me, I know this. So if you turn your FBC on, it will limit the intake of the color, and it will compensate for you so you don't have that weird banding effect that'll come here and then here. So you get like half the screen here, half the screen there with a flash. It'll prevent that. So if you turn it on or turn it off, it's up to you, but if you leave it on, it's specifically for that purpose, and you turn it off when you don't need it, like right now, or when most of the time when I'm shooting, I don't have to deal with flash photography. But it's a good thing to know that we have it there. All right. I'm going to put this as MAGA level. User 1 and user 2. They are these buttons here, user 1 and user 2. They're basically the same as this, so basically you have 1, 2, and 3, however you want to see it. This one's user main is a little easier to reach though. Okay, so here are my options: record, review, spotlight, backlight, auto white balance, auto white lock, gain 24, Y-get, DRS, text memo, slot select, so on and so forth. Same different things. In this case, I have it at backlight. I very rarely use that, but I do have it set as backlight. User 2 I have set as gain 24. That's what it does. It's great for shooting in very low tinted windows of cars. Okay, RET switch. That one is right here, right behind the zoom. So if you hit this, it will show you the last thing that you recorded. I can't do it right now because I haven't recorded anything on any cards. I have no cards. But you have a couple other things you can do: text memo, shot mark, or inhibit. Inhibit, what it does is it disables that function. I should have just called it disable, but they called it inhibit. All right, I use that as my record review. Okay, waveform. You can have a waveform, a vector scope, or a waveform and vector scope. Let's go back up here to the user main, and we'll select a waveform. And when I turn that on, I hit it once, I get a waveform, and second time I get a vector scope, third time it goes off. Pretty cool. All right, and then auto knee switch, you basically can turn this function on and off. Or you can make it so that it does dynamic range extender. So that way when it goes on, rather than using the knee, it'll do the dynamic range extender, which I think is actually a better setup. Recording setup, this is the fun stuff. All right, record function. I just learned about this a little while ago. I didn't know that I had some of these options, and this totally blew me away. Okay, normal. When I press record, it starts recording. When I press stop, it stops.
Okay, I don't know why, but for some crazy reason, my audio just totally dropped out right there. So now I'm going to try to follow along and remember what I said. Okay, here we're talking about the interval recording. Now what this does is it will do when you set your interval, it will do one frame every whatever it is. So you can do 1 minute, one frame every 1 minute, one frame every 2 seconds, one frame every 16 frames or half a second, however you want to do that. What this will do is a really cool time-lapse type recording thing, and it will put it all into one clip. And it's a pretty nice little feature. I just discovered this feature a little while ago. One of my coworkers showed it to me. He didn't know about it, and he just played with it and found it and thought it was pretty interesting. But it will create one clip for the entire thing. The next one in the record function is one shot. And what this does, this was kind of a little interesting when I discovered this one as well. This one will, if you do the one shot time, whenever I get to it, it will, whenever you hit the start button, it will record for as long as your one shot time is. So let's say I set the one shot time for 1 frame. So when I hit start, it will record for 1 frame and stop. And then when I go do my next shot, I hit start and it will record for 1 frame and then stop. I think the maximum is 1 second. So you can record up to a second at a time. And it makes kind of an interesting little way of doing it. I don't know that it would be useful for me. It could be useful for if you were trying to show a time lapse of walking through a place. It might be kind of neat. You could do the same with interval, but I think interval is better if you just leave it on a tripod. The one shot will be if you are wanting to dictate when you want each of the shots to take place. So here we have the one shot times. So I've got it set to 1 frame. You can do it up to 1 second. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So if you wanted each of your shots only to be 1 second long, then that's how you would do it. That could be a cool thing for the car show, although I usually like mine to be 2 seconds.
Okay. Basically with this, you will never run out of P2 memory, but it will only hold the last however long your memory is. So if I have 2 16 gig cards in there, I run about 35 minutes on those. So basically this will just continue recording, and once it runs out of space on both cards, it will start recording over the old clip on the first card. Okay, so basically this is a DVR or a security camera recorder type thing where it just continuously loops, records the last 30 minutes of your life.
Okay, my audio keeps dropping off right there. All right, so what I'm going to do is switch this back up to normal because that's basically what I shoot with. I don't really do the other options very much. The start delay is basically it will delay your start, and you can set a time or a length of how long you want it to delay. And what this will do is when you hit start, let's say you're doing a one shot or an interval recording, when you hit start, it will give you a few seconds to get your shot ready, and then it will go ahead and do it. In the case of an interval, you might do the start delay so that you can get out in front of the shot. All right, the pre-record mode is quite interesting. This is a tough thing to explain. Okay, basically what's happening in pre-record is that whenever you are out there and your camera is on, it constantly records up to 3 seconds at a time. So it has in the memory buffer 3 seconds of recording all the time. So when you have the pre-record mode on, it is constantly saving the video that you were just pointing the camera at into the camera, into the memory buffer at all times. And it has about a 3 second memory buffer. So when you finally do hit the start stop button, it will save that 3 seconds into your memory buffer, or actually onto your P2 card. The reason for this is, let's say you're out there, you're at a really cool event and wild things are happening, and you pick up your camera and you start shooting and you hit the start stop button, but you just hit it 1 second too late. That car exploded and you missed the beginning of the explosion. Well, with that 3 second buffer, you won't miss anything. You won't miss up to 3 seconds, obviously. So you have that little bit of a buffer. So as you're getting ready to do your recording, you can start it and you have that saved there.
Timecode mode, drop frame or non-drop frame. If you are running 30 frames a second, non-drop frame, it will be 30 frames a second. If you're running in drop frame, it'll be 29.97 frames per second. Basically, you lose 0.3 frames for every second. I use drop frame because I'm used to it. But you can use non-drop frame. If you do, though, you will notice that a 1 hour show will end up being about 3 seconds longer than it should. So be aware of that. If you're aware of the differences between drop frame and non-drop frame, you'll be able to compensate. User bit mode. Okay, let's go back to here. And you can see up in the corner I have timecode. I almost always keep it on timecode. I don't really care for the other things. But over here, I have different counters that I can press. That's user bit. Okay, so I've got frame rate. This is just a regular counter of whatever I want it to set. This is my time code. I don't know why there's two different time codes, but whatever. And then user bit mode. This particular user bit tells me how many minutes of whatever is left. Okay, so let's go back into that software. So I can set user bit like this so that when I start recording it gives me a counter on my own that's separate from the time code. I personally like the time code because it tells me what's going on the card more so than what's going on my camera. If I have the time code on, then I can see when I need to reset it so that I don't get a weird jump in time code because my editing system uses the time code for all of its clips. Okay, if I do time, this is an internal clock and it's set totally wrong because it is not 10 o'clock at night. But that's fine, we can deal with that. Date tells me the date. I think that's correct. I don't know what the 22 is for. EXT is if you have an external timecode generator. I don't. Just another timecode generator. And frame rate. One clip recording. I don't like this function. I like it off. And basically what happens is when you hit start and stop on your recordings, if you have one clip recording off, then it will make a new clip for every time you hit start. So you get a whole bunch of clips. Let's say you're shooting a car show and you shot 20 different cars, 3 shots per each car, so now you have 60 clips. Well, that may be a lot to sift through, but I'd rather sift through 60 clips than try to scrub through one clip of 60 different shots. If it's something simple and you're going to crash record a bunch of things together, then it might be good to turn it on. But for the most part, I leave it off. I don't like the idea of having it on. Okay, and then start text memo. Basically, it's just a memo to yourself that you can create in another menu. And when you do have it on, it just gives you a text memo whenever you press the button, and it lets you know whatever it is you want to know. All right, so those are the two menus, software mode and recording setup. Now notice we didn't have anything having to do with the actual recording of the size of the clips. That is actually done in system setup, not recording setup. This just has to do with the feel of the camera, the way the camera feels or the style of shooting you're going to use for those types of things. I'm going to turn that pre-record off because I never use it. And software mode just has to do with the buttons and switches, how you can change them and make them a little more accommodating to you. All right, so I'd like to thank you very much for watching.